Hello, everyone.
Hi,
Hi,
Kath. Hey, Ron.
Rob.
How are you guys?
I'm good. We're good here in the Philippines. Like it's our another live here in Bukart, Philippines. So, by the way, I'm Kath Benitez, and together with me is also Gaurav Sharma. So, before we formally have this formal interview session, I would just like to give a brief introduction of Team Rock, our speaker for this afternoon for this live session. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's all hear Team Rock. Team Rock is a marine photographer, author, and publisher based in Guam with over 30 years of experience. He specializes in environmental and conservation issues in the Western and Indo-Pacific. A journalism graduate from University of Nebraska, Omaha, he has received multiple awards, including a Lifetime Achievement Award from his alma mater, and Rock's work has appeared on major networks like CBS and in prestigious publications such as National Geographic and Smithsonian. He's also a Lonely Planet author and has published his own series of guidebooks. And his photography is represented by top agencies, including his own Double Blue Images. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's all welcome Team Rock, one of the co-authors of the Diving and Snorkeling Guide to Puerto Galera, Philippines. A big round of applause, everyone. Hello, team. It was nice
Hi,
meeting.
how are you guys? Nice,
Yeah.
nice being over here from Guam, and very nice to see everybody.
Yeah, and we would like, in behalf of the Bookart Philippines, we would like to give thanks to you for giving us this opportunity to have this one-on-one conversation with you. It's such a privilege for us to have you here in this live session.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, the Philippines has given so much for me. I'm very happy to do this. So.
Yeah. Okay, Gaurav, anything you have to say to Tim Rack before we start this interview?
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
I can now. There we go. There we
Yeah.
go.
So, hello, Tim, Kathleen. We were like together. Means I'm joining from two devices. My laptop camera is not working, so I'll look from this side. So you see my photo there.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely fascinated by the sea, and
Looks like
and
land, air, and sea there. Huh? So,
yeah. So I'm really thankful to Tim for sparing his time and sharing. I think the common thread between Kathleen working for the fisheries and into research, me, and Tim is that we all love the ocean.
Yes.
And Tim had the patience to put together it into the form of a book and with the wonderful, wonderful photos. So, yeah, over to Kathleen and Tim.
Oh, thanks, Gaurav. So, like, team, I know everyone in DCP really wanted to know. So, what really inspired you to be the co-author of Diving and Snorkeling Guide to Puerto Galera, Philippines? Is it something you really want to do, or like you've been diving in the Philippines for how many long years already?
yeah, I'm old. So, right. So I've been in Guam since 1981, and I think around the first time I was actually in Puerto Galera was around 1990 or so, and I just loved it at that time, even though it was pretty simple back then. Not so many dive shops and everything. It's really kind of blossomed in the last decade or so, but. Every couple of years I try to come back and make some dives there, and I got away from it a little bit because I was traveling for Lonely Planet, and I was doing kind of far off places, like far off for our area, like Belize and some of the Caribbean islands. I was over in Thailand. I was in South Africa for a long time after the apartheid ended, shooting the great white sharks and that sort of thing. And then a few years ago, I kind of decided to get back to my roots and do more diving in Micronesia and the Philippines again. And I did a lot of work with Philippine tourism, and we came out with a book similar to my diving guide that I had done for Lonely Planet a few years prior to that. And we did a book specifically for Philippine tourism. So anytime they go to a trade show, and they're very active in the trade shows and promoting the Philippines and promoting the beauty of the reefs. And when you're able to do that, it's really a blessing, because you're able to travel to all the top spots around the Philippines to record them. And that actually inspired the book I did called The 50 Best Dives in the Philippines. And then a few years back, we started thinking, well, maybe we should start doing more local tours, because of the pandemic. People were really itching to go diving, after everything lifted. But people were still a little wary of going too far. So the Scandi divers over in Big La Laguna, Puerto Galera is kind of funny. The little bay is called Big La Laguna, and the big bay is called Little La Laguna, right? But Scandi divers is at the far end of that bay. It's a very nice, peaceful little place. And they said, will you bring a group from Guam over? And give yourselves a name. So we called ourselves the Guam Dive Nuts. And we brought probably, I think, 14 people on the first trip. And they were just so happy to be traveling and doing diving again. And seeing, having nice things like Filipino food, and seeing, all the beautiful islands around Mindoro there, that it was a big hit. So since that was about 2022, since then we've made 4 more trips to Puerto Galera. So I finally said, I think, it's been a long time since anyone's actually written a book. And we, Simon Pridmore and I, did a scan of Amazon and looked around, and all the books were pretty dated. And so we said, I think, maybe it's time for us to sit down and do a really nice book about Puerto Galera, something that's very colorful, something that's very handy. And we brought the idea up to Dr. Dave over at Scandi Divers, and he said, sure, I'll be happy to support that. So he said that we could go, spend a couple weeks just concentrating on the divers and using his wonderful staff as reference. And sure enough, we were able to put together the book, which we think is very handy and very colorful, and shows the best of the sport diving part of Puerto Galera. Puerto Galera is also a big tech diving area, and that's kind of where Simon Pridmore came in. In the 1990s, there were a lot of people that really got into tech diving in Hong Kong. And Simon was on basically the cutting edge of this new sport where people use mixed gases and, tried things like nitrox and helium mixes and rebreathers. And some of the rebreathers were pretty amazing. They were so big, they looked like somebody's wearing a lawnmower on their back. But Simon talked to 3 or 4 of the dive shops that were in Puerto Galera at the time and said, how would you like to be part of a groundbreaking effort? And he and some other Hong Kong divers started exploring the really deep parts of Puerto Galera. So he and I have been traveling together, leading groups together for around 25 years now. In 1997, when Hong Kong went back to the Chinese, Simon was working for the Hong Kong government, and he retired and opened a dive shop on Guam. And we became good friends through that business and started leading tours, which we haven't stopped doing since around 2000. So Simon was with us on a couple of the Puerto Galera tours, and it brought back old memories. And he's like, "Oh yeah, we can do a really nice dive guide. I can provide some history from the times that I was there, and I remember there's still some of the dive shops that were involved, like Alan over at Atlantis, and I think Chuck over at Captain Greg's, and Frank next to Scandi Divers. They were all part of the cutting edge tech diving. So Simon was very excited to get involved in the book, and so in between the two of us, I had a lot of continuity in history with Simon, and pioneering as well. And then me, I just love to take the photos of all the colorful stuff around Puerto Galera. So a pretty good 1-2 punch, we thought, and we decided to make a nice book.
Okay. Thank you, Tim, for a wonderful, it's inspiring to hear that somebody, you said information was out of date. It definitely was. And glad you bought Verde Island Passage, which is made famous by the carpenter. I don't remember the first name, but yeah, you covered from Belize. There's a famous blue hole there, and you've been doing Lonely Planet stuff. So yeah, Puerto Galera does bring me myself. I was in Navy for 10 years, and that in South Africa, I also got a chance to dive there. So, but
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Puerto Galera has a charm. And then I would like to ask here the question you mentioned about the deepest scuba dive. You mentioned Atlantis was done, and I was in sheer awe because I was a very young diver there when I heard, and this record was made in 2002 at Atlantis Tech. And so I was curious about Puerto Galera. But since you've been diving for a long, you've been coming here since 90s, you said, with Guam Dive Nuts. That's a really good name. Yeah. So
they're a fun bunch, and there's some Guam connection somewhere, even though some of them live in Hawaii, some of them live in Europe, some of them live in Alaska. At one point they've lived in Guam for a while, so they're they're all part of a little network. So yeah, they're all kind of dive nuts.
Okay. Yeah. So what has been your most memorable experience, if you have to, in Puerto Galera?
Oh, around Puerto Galera? Gosh, it's really hard because Puerto Galera is really kind of special. And I don't know if it's the currents, the diversity. I brought a fella named Dr. Charles Birkland over, who's a longtime friend and retired from the University of Guam Marine Lab, and also did a lot of work in Hawaii. Lives in Hawaii now, and he's the guy that discovered why crown of thorns have outbreaks, and did a lot of really groundbreaking coral reef research. And so I was really interested to see his take on Puerto Galera. And this was maybe a year and a half ago. We had Chuck with us, and he was just he says, I don't know how the reefs do it here. They all seem to bounce back a lot. And as we all know, if you've dived Puerto Galera, sometimes they can be just really nice, just stroll in the park kind of dives. But then when the tide changes, all of a sudden you're in a drift, and some of the spots you're in a real drift, where you might start at one dive site and cover 3 or 4 in one drift dive. Is really kind of fun. And I don't know if it's just that constant flow around the island that keeps it so nice, or maybe the corals are hardier or something. I know it's been a preserve for many years. I'm wearing my little Mindoro environmental hat here, and people are working hard to keep the reefs and the fish life and everything well protected. But whatever it is, there's just something about Puerto Galera that since the 90s really hasn't changed, which is very, to me, a really special thing. Because some places over the years you've seen that El Ninos have hit and the coral just hasn't bounced back, and some ocean places that were very popular for diving are kind of struggling right now. And we even see that here on Guam, where we've had outbreaks of crown of thorns, as well as periods where we have really a lot of ocean warming, and the corals in the sea anemones struggle to get back. And even this year it was kind of warm in Puerto Galera, and we saw a few of the anemones kind of turn white, but for the most part, everything seems to be cooking right along over there. And, when you have a white sea anemone, it actually makes a really beautiful picture. It's probably a little hard on the sea anemone, but they seem to bounce back fairly well if they're not exposed to the warm water either. So, I wish I had a real definitive answer, but it just seems like Puerto Galera is one of these places that just kind of keeps on ticking. And in the summertime, it's wonderful. It's like Micronesia. It's like Guam's waters, where it's really warm. But it could be because there's so much change in water temperature. Things cool down in the wintertime, and maybe you get into about February or March or so, and you have to wear a hood or you're freezing over there, and put on an extra layer. And that may be something that helps the corals too. Maybe just the change of the water temperatures all the time have made the corals a little tougher and a little stronger. So I don't know exactly what it is, but it seems to be working. And the fact that the reefs are protected all the time, that I think really helps a lot too.
Yeah. And like team, I'm also like a scuba diver, but I'm not really seasoned like you. So I've also been diving here in Puerto Galera, and there are a lot of nice and popular dive sites like Alma Jane, Canyons, and then we also have Sabang Rex. But most of this there are some dive sites which are less known to people. So in your book, have you also pictured other dive sites which are not really, I mean, a go-to site for divers or scuba divers here in Puerto Galera?
Yeah, there's a. I hear you. I like Alma Jane, and the canyons are just beautiful.
Yeah.
Especially even on a light current, if the corals are opened up, it's just so colorful there.
Yeah.
But
Somebody got a mass squeeze at Canyons.
Oh, canyons are really super, like, it's so tricky there, but I really like the marine life thriving in canyons.
yeah, yeah, and also over at Verde Island, it just seems like that place it just keeps on ticking. Every time you get in, sometimes I just like to swim a little bit and then just stop and watch because you never know what's going to come in there. Sometimes you see a big giant trevally swim by, or a school of rainbow runners, and the next thing you know, you've got a bunch of surgeonfish, and then you look down and there's a sea snake swimming past you, and swim a little farther and there's a little hawksbill turtle munching away on a sponge. So Verde is something that I think everybody should do. When we do our trips, we always try to put at least one day at Verde Island there, and at least two dives. So people really get excited about that. And even shallow, even in 15, 20 feet, 7 meters, 6 meters. Verde has just got so many antheas swimming around, and it's just so busy. that is kind of a sensory overload. And then you get down deeper, and they're huge sea fans. They're like on the cover of our book, those big sea fans are from a dive site called The Wall. But there's a couple spots back around on the way toward Muley Bay that I really like to go to as far as muck diving goes. And, if you're with the right guide who really knows what to look for and has the good eye, those little muck sites, if you're patient and just, take your time, produce some of the oddest, strangest creatures that are on almost every macro photographer's checklist. And so I think that's one thing that's really special about Puerto Galera. And then even right at the end of the bay, you come around the point down there, there's some areas that huge, old, mostly green sea turtles. I mean, you can tell they're big and mature, and they have a couple of, usually hauling along a couple really big remoras with them. There's kind of a plateau area that these turtles like to hang around, especially in the colder months. And I think that that dive site's really pretty special to go to as well.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. The macro scene is right here at Montani. Means Montani, the Secret Bay. It's got one of the means whatever you have on your macro photographers list, you can find it here.
That's for sure.
Yeah, and there's something for everyone. Means from a beginner to tech diving, you can experience everything here at Puerto Galera. Its topography, definitely Verde Island passage, and the drop off. The sea fans you mentioned, the big sea fans, which are at the drop off. That's from the Verde Island. So I understand as a diver and a photographer, you must have researched. But how did you gather the other information together for this book? What was your process? Anybody? I mean,
Well,
I'm asking because this is Book Art Philippines. We have like writers and authors, and trying to write. It's with the technology, it's become more easy. But how was your writing process about and gathering information?
yeah. Well, I've got some friends around the Philippines for many years. Guys like Scott Gutsy Tuason, and he comes down and visits every once in a while. But I do try to talk to people that come to Puerto Galera on a regular basis. And I was going to say, when I was talking about the pioneers, I said Ellen from Atlantis. I meant Ellen from Asia Divers.
Alan is from Asia Divers. Yeah,
Yeah,
Alan Asia Divers. Yeah.
I've done work with the Atlantis guys too. I'm part of their image makers group, but yeah, I wanted to make sure Ellen was, connected to the proper dive operation there and hotel. but yeah, and that's what I mean. That's part of the process. Is we have known people there for a long time, and something new happens, they'll update us, and we'll go, oh wow, that's a really nice development. Like the board, I guess you call it the boardwalk or the sea walk that's now in front of the town. It's Sabang there, and that's really a nice way to just stroll along the front of the dock area, the harbor area, I guess you call it. And it looks like that is being still worked on as we speak. But yeah, what we'll do is we have a regular checklist. We have kind of a template of things that we think people want to know about an area, and we try to get the answers. Anywhere from where you can go get a cheap bottle of wine, or have a taco dinner or something like that. Uh, in our intro kind of practicalities section, to what's the contact number for the chamber, just in case someone would need that. And Puerto Galera does have an active, good chamber operation going. And then as far as the reefs go, the guides are the ones that are out there doing it every day, and they see all the changes. And basically, I try to talk to as many dive guides as I can. Rex Medina and his crew, Leo and that bunch. I've been working with them for 2.5, 3 years now. And Rex has been around, I think he said 29 or 30 years now that he's been in management and diving in the Puerto Galera area. So, if you need to know a little history or need to know, something that's changed just recently, usually you find some of the old salts in the area and go ask them and try to get the most updated information from them. And then once we compile that, a couple new developments, right? All of a sudden, the last few years, thresher sharks are showing up down at like Kilima Steps and that, some couple other areas, Sinandigan. And just recently, I believe that rare Coalmani nudibranch, the thing that kind of looks like a piece of fried tempura or something. There's a very rare, holy grail nudibranch that was found back by the hill area, and just a little bit down past where the giant clams are down there. And I think last year it was only seen once, but it's there, and so that's the kind of amazing news that people like to hear. And then the thresher sharks, of course, are always beautiful to see. So I'm sure people are trying to figure out if there's any regularity to them coming in and where they like to. They're probably coming in for cleaning, early morning. Go into the bathroom and get all cleaned up and all ready for the day, kind of thing. And they're just such beautiful, graceful sharks that Puerto Galera should take a page out of Malapascua's book, because they really cultivated and protected that resource, and have made an entire industry out of it, really. And if I think Puerto Galera plays its cards right, tries to find out what the behavior of the shark is, and then respects that and brings divers there that don't chase after the sharks, then I think they'll have a really going industry myself. And just that kind of thing, finding out the new developments, give us a chance to make little sidebars in the book. And of course, highlights for the dive sites that people already know about. Most people think of Sinandingan as a place to see nudibranchs and, flamboyant cuttlefish or something like that. But down deep by a couple of the larger rocks down there, they have seen the thresher sharks come in down there too. So it just takes a little bit of experimenting, and I think some of these dive sites will open up and show people even more of what Puerto Galera has to offer. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, team? I'm also trying to look for treasure sharks before, but I'm so unfortunate that I can't really find them. I've been trying in Kalima Steps, I think somewhere there. It's there somewhere. They would really they will really appear, but I don't really get the chance to see treasure sharks. So I'm really praying that if I through time I can really see them here in Puerto Galera. So since you've mentioned about this nudibranchs and then treasure sharks, So, what do you think are the most vibrant creatures, or the most vibrant marine life that you have found here in Puerto Galera? And can you tell us how Puerto Galera has evolved through time? Its dive sites, like how was it before, and how was it now that you've been diving here since last time?
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of it is just like equipment. It keeps evolving just the same way uh, that the sport diving does. The introduction of nitrox has really helped. Uh, for if you go to some place like the canyons or Kilima Steps or the wall there, it allows you to just kind of hang out and hope that the threshers will swim by. Yeah, that's the way it was in Malapascua as well. The sharks there initially were in between the 80 and 100-foot depth range, and with the introduction of nitrox, it gave you a lot more bottom time to be able to sit there and hope a shark would come by. Because a shark kind of takes its own time and does what it wants and doesn't realize you're running out of air, and so you got to stretch out what you can in the areas where you're hoping to see the big stuff. Um, and I think as far as vibrant areas, in that point that starts kind of with the hole in the wall and goes all the way out past the canyons, and there's some more deeper dive sites out there. When everything is opened up and the currents are flowing over it, even just when it's mild currents, it's still fairly good. You really don't see too many places like that are just incredible explosions of pink soft corals and the really big golden sea fans and the small schools of fish that come in and kind of gather behind the rocks, 20 or 30 sweet lips looking at you. And then you never know what's going to come in from the blue. One of the things that I really like about Puerto Galera that I honestly don't remember a while back, and this could be just because I don't remember, but all there's a big mouth kind of a scad that comes in, um, and they come in huge shoals, and when they turn and open their mouth to feed, they just glisten all over the place in the sunlight hitting their gills, and I can sit there and just watch these schools go back and forth and back and forth for a super long time. It seems like all up and down the peninsula, just past the Sabang Bay. These things, and even they even come into Sabang Bay, but sometimes the size of the schools about halfway down the point are just really spectacular, I think. And if you were videoing, it just makes a really flowing, beautiful pattern of shoals of fish that a lot of people just stop everything and start looking up into the blue and watching these guys as they feed. It's just like a big flock of birds, except except it's a bunch of shiny fish instead.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Like you said, it's a lot of vibrant life, and it starts from a hole in the wall, goes on the three canyons, and if you come here towards the Dungun wall, the colorful pink wall, the corals, it's really vibrant. Uh, uh, Now, I would like to ask, yeah, how does your book caters to a novice photographer who's just beginning with his TG5, TG6, means, just putting together a new camera? And how does it caters for more experience? Means divers trying to do, you mentioned macro and super macro
Mm.
stuff. So, like, coming towards this side, you can see some big stuff. Like now, thresher sharks can be spotted if you are lucky. Kathleen hasn't been that lucky, but I've seen them multiple times.
Oh,
Um,
really? Oh, great.
yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Uh,
still
so
myself.
yeah, so I would just like for our readers on Facebook and listeners here on the YouTube, somebody who's a novice, who's just starting, and some experienced divers. How does your book goes about? Means about explaining photography, underwater photography, and also you're wearing dive Mindoro hat. You explain. Uh, is there something about sustainability? You mentioned thresher sharks. I would like to hear. Means you said Malapascua has done wonderful. They've made an entire industry out of that. So Puerto Galera can take a leaf out of that, and definitely
I,
photographers are the eyes and ears of not only divers, but books like this brings the focus on sustainable tourism. So can
mhm.
you explain, as an author, uh, how does your book go about photography and caters to the demands, or just like how a photographer will read that and take some leaf out of your book? Yeah, experience from you and also Simon. Simon, I think, is more on the tech side, and you said like wonderfully. You said the
Yeah.
mixed gases, and then about rebreathers and all that. So, do you want to address this in this question? Tell me more about your book.
Oh, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned that because when Simon and I were doing some of the copy for the book, I said, "Well, you handled the tech side, right?" So he wrote up a lot of the history and what the records were and how they mix gases, and he gave a really nice uh, uh, you know picture of how things were developed back then. And I said, yeah, but can you rewrite it a little bit, tell a little more about the dives? And so once again, he kind of got into the personnel involved and a little bit of the history. And I said, no, 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 no. I said, what I want you to do is tell me what it was like to be down 130, 150, 200 some feet down there. The first people, seeing what underwater Puerto Galera was like, was it eerie? Was it, what creatures did you see? Were there more sharks? Did you see manta rays? I had all these questions for him. And he said, well, he said, we're so busy looking at our gauges and making sure everything was right. And, the deep diving was really kind of a new thing. Nobody brought cameras with them. And that just wasn't our thing. Our thing was really the technical side of it totally. And I thought that was pretty funny because I've taken some tech diving, so I know what's going on about it. But I pretty much figured I'd kill myself if I continue to rebreather diving and that sort of thing, because you do have to be so vigilant about what's going on that there's few people that can really combine rebreather diving and really, high-end photography. So I decided I better just stick to my f-stops and work with what's above 140 feet. And so when we were putting the book together like that, I got kind of a chuckle out of Simon's description because uh, I thought that he was going to say, "Oh yeah, the sharks were down there and manta rays swimming by," and he was like, "Well, we were too busy making sure our mixes were right and all the equipment was working." So as far as photography, what we try to do with the book um, is just show as much variety as we can. Puerto Galera has just an amazing, array of things like frogfish, of course, nudibranchs. Um, I remember a guy that was my accountant quite a few years ago used to stay at Captain Greg's all the time, and he was into night konos photography, where you had film cameras back then and a framer, and what you could get into a frame with the proper lens. I think it was a 28 millimeter lens, fairly good frame. You could put it down and get everything all set with your strobes, take a picture, and everything would be just tack sharp in within that frame. And he showed me one picture that had like 7 different kinds of nudibranchs in it. And I said, "What'd you do? Run around picking up nudibranchs?" And he's like, "No, no, no. We actually saw this at Sinnindigan Wall. We didn't move anything or anything like that. There's just that many there, and they're that different." And I'm like, "Wow, well, that's impressive." And so nowadays, like you say, people are getting into the TG 5 and 6, and I know a lot of pros who always carry one of those in their BC, even though they're going around with a wide angle lens, maybe looking for a thresher shark, or they're in a place that has a manta ray, in case they're sitting there for the mantas to come by, and all of a sudden they look down and say, "Oh, well, look at that nudibranch." They'll just pull out their TG6 and take a couple shots and put it back in their BC, so they can make sure that they've got the best of both worlds covered. And so that's always kind of been a dilemma if you're a photographer. If you're really a dedicated macro guy, you don't even worry about turtles and looking for thresher sharks or anything large at all. You're really dedicated to the tiny stuff, and you're probably more looking on the tinier side and trying to see things like skeleton shrimp and find the hard to find stuff. And it's all there too in Puerto Galera. And then if you're a newer diver, you're not real sure what you want to do yet. So a TG6 is a pretty good option. And in most of the housings for them, these housings are a little bit of an investment. When people use a GoPro and then went, "Oh, but I want more. I can't get close enough with a GoPro," then they'll go with something like the TG6. And by the time you've put your money into buying a wide angle lens for the thing and got the macro figured out, and bought a couple strobes and a spotting light, it's a pretty good little investment, even if it is one of the less expensive cameras. So what we try to do is show some of the marine life that you could shoot with the TG6, some of the wider shots that you could get with a GoPro or a TG6. And then, of course, I personally, I'm a wide angle guy, so I swim around a lot with 8 millimeter lens and a 714 lens. But even with those lenses, you can get super close to some things. I can shoot, a medium-sized flamboyant cuttlefish or something, and some of the larger frogfish, that kind of thing, just by doing the proper settings and maybe a little bit of cropping when you get back to onto the laptop again. But it's Puerto Galera does have so much variety that what we try to do in the book is show people from anything from a giant frogfish, or even like a good sized little nudibranch or something like that, that you can shoot the close focus wide angle where you can get very close to the nudibranch or get very close to the frogfish and still have a really nice burst of light in the background or the sunshine in the background. Especially in Sabang Bay, there's some super calm waters over, I guess it'd be on the north side over there. East side, over on the east side over there of the bay, and the sun filters down really nicely where they are, so you can shoot the close focus wide angle as well. So I think if people check out some of the shots in the book and just kind of persevere, they'll be able, with the right combination of lenses and camera bodies and everything, come out with a nice variety of shots from Puerto Galera. Sure.
Yeah, so I hope people would really like. I know the books is really nice, so I hope like all of this our Book Cart Philippines people also would check this out, and they would really explore the underwater world of Puerto Galera. So, Team Ari, also want to ask if you have a high points or lowest point as a diver or as an image maker. And then what can you say about this? There are some people who are not really fortunate enough that they can do scuba diving. So that's why they do for deep sea tourism, like for example, the Ocean Gate submersible. So what are your thoughts about this kind of Ocean Gate submersible who's offering tourism and the rest? And yeah, what are your thoughts about this?
Well, I must admit, I'm not too familiar with that. Is that like a mini sub or something like that? Or
Yeah, it was like a submarine who explored the remnants of the Titanic that it
This
happened.
was the infamous
oh,
incident.
the super deep, yeah, the super deep
They
stuff.
went to visit Titanic, right? And
Yeah,
it was
started
Right,
imploded.
right.
So there's some submersible tourism happening at a shallow depth and a little deeper. I heard I'm from India, and there also they are doing this submarine tourism. So you don't need to be a diver, but people do. It's like it's a thing. People. So what's your take? Being a diver, I definitely all of us are divers here, but I'm thinking for some people, how does it like how do you see that experience? uh,
I've had the really good fortune of working with Al Giddings, and Al has something like 200 plus hours on the Titanic, alone in a submersible down there filming and scouting. And I really can't fathom. Must be an amazing, just unbelievable feeling, as well as feeling kind of small and alone, all in one trip. But uh, I, uh, in Guam we have a thing called the Atlantis submarine, which is a real submarine. It uses like scrubbers, just like a rebreather, except they're big scrubbers that I think it can hold over 20 people, about 24, 26 people, and people that are on that mainly aren't divers, but they seem to come away from the experience uh, really impressed. And for almost 20 years, I had a gift shop in Guam at Fisheye Marine Park, which is highlighted by an undersea observatory. So there's a pier that went about 1/4 of a mile out into the ocean, and then there's a Japanese built observatory. So it kind of looked like an hourglass with a big top and upper deck and all windows, sitting in the middle of what was probably a collapsed cave in one of our bays in an area called PD in a marine preserve. And people could walk around and see all the really nice corals and super blue water up above, and then take spiral staircases down uh, eight, about 8 meters down, 24, 26 feet down, into the same kind of area, but everything was underwater. And half of it had coral reef along it, and then some of it had sand flats. And on a nice, clear, high tide morning, it was just spectacular. You'd see sharks swimming by and schools of snapper, and you know, pretty much, I would say 98% of our customers out there weren't divers either. Maybe a few of them would be snorkelers or something like that, but not really water people. But they would always come away from that, pretty amazed. And we had fish charts upstairs in the upper deck. And after they would go down and see the fish, they'd come back up and they'd find the fish that they saw. And so It's my opinion that doing the submarine diving, especially the deep submarine diving, that got pioneered in the Cayman Islands, and I think it might still be popular today. And now it's starting to spread to some other places. I know there's like a submersible that Steve Drogan built years ago down at Cocos Island, and there's probably quite a few more that I'm not that aware of. But yeah, it has to be a special experience to be going down that deep. But I think just the ones that allow the people just to experience the coral reef, the Atlantis tourist submarines, and Okinawa's got an undersea observatory like Guam does. Any kind of exposure that people can have to the ocean and to the reef, is in my opinion, a positive education, and gives them a little more appreciation for the ocean. And so maybe when some sort of political thing comes up that people want to support, like a marine preserve or something like that, they may be a little bit more on board to establish something like a marine preserve if they've seen how one works, and how people can benefit from it, and how the fish life blossom in those kind of areas and then spill out to other areas that aren't preserves. So yeah, overall, I'm kind of for dry tourism, dry underwater tourism.
We are all in for, like, we are all ocean lovers. But sadly, for some people, I mean, I had today, when somebody is 70 plus trying to do open water, they just got time now, and now that they have retired, they would try their first time to become open water divers. They're traveling from Denmark to come. So I want to ask you, like, what advice will you give to the first time photographers, like people like my friends who've been going regularly to Maldives, and only thing they know about Philippines is like Chupataha, because it's really, it's the most known place. Or so what advice would you give people who are thinking about coming to Puerto Galera and diving at Verde Island? Uh, as the author of this book and as a photographer, people who ask me, means if they want to hear from the horse's mouth, like, because you've authored this book, they will see the wonderful visuals. But what's the advice for a budding photographer who's dived, who's recently, somebody who's done like Raja Ampat in Indonesia or Tubataha, and he's kind of undecided whether it will be worthwhile to come to Puerto Galera. So what's your advice for such a photographer or a diver?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's always a tough one, Sometimes somebody says, I really want to get into underwater photography, how do I do it? And I said, okay, so there's this book by Chris Newbert, see if you can find it. It was a presidential gift back in the 1990s, and it was the printing was done using, I think, 14 or 15 plates. The images are just stunning, and the U.S. president used to give it out at the White House as a gift to show off the beauty of Hawaii and the oceans, and you'll just really enjoy this book, and then go into the bathroom and flush all your money down the toilet, and you'll have saved yourself 20 years of time, with flooding cameras and fighting when the focus ring falls off underwater, and all the frustrations, or the strobe doesn't work, all the frustrations that underwater photographer does, and you'll have a book of nice pictures. Most people think I'm crazy when I say that, but it's an expensive and kind of hobby that once you reach one level, you have to really kind of decide what you're doing, because I've had some friends that shoot GoPros, and I said, how come I never see any of your video? And they go, it takes too long to edit the video. I just like taking the pictures, but I've got all this stuff on my computer now, and it's really slowing my computer down. And so, you either have to kind of make the commitment to, be a videographer or a photographer, or just decide, well, maybe it's, fine just to do it kind of part-time-ish. Now that there's some really nice housings for the iPhone, a lot of people can do that. A lot of people just want to shoot for TikTok or Facebook or something like that, and they can just take their phone down, and then at the end of the day, publish a video or two and say, hey, here I am, and they're happy with it, and their friends are happy, and that's the end of it. And so it's really kind of a wide open field, and competitively, underwater photography, because it is the underwater housing people, and some of the cameras now are just fantastic. It's really become a competitive field. You have to kind of really want to. You have to realize how much work it is. The guys that are the real established pros, guys like David Fleetum, come to mind, who once you're done with your photography, you still have to edit everything, and it has to be edited well. Then you have to identify everything, not only in English but in Latin, and you have to be right on top of it. And then you have to seek out representation or represent yourself to book publishers, and books are kind of waning back and forth. It used to be really nice big coffee table books were a thing, where now people are happy to get a Kindle book, or just have an ebook to see some of the same nice pictures. So if you're going to try to make a living at it, or even pay for your expensive equipment, there's a lot of work involved, and you have to really dedicate yourself and realize what you have to do, and then follow through and do it. And so that's kind of separates the pros from the amateurs. But there are some serious amateurs out there that are really kicking butt. And as far as just Puerto Galera goes itself, a lot of times photographers don't like currents very much. But if you work with the right dive shop and talk to your dive master, you can, there's always a time where the current's going to be a little bit slack, or there's going to be a time where there'll be no current at all during the changes. And you can always work with your dive master, or how Puerto Galera is, one side of the island's got some currents, the other side's nice and calm. So you can just work things out and go to the different spots, so you are not having your hair blowing straight back into the into the current, trying to get down to some little nudibranch and get a picture of it. You can do it and set the lights up properly, and make the underwater your studio. So I don't think Puerto Galera is any problem as far as a photographer coming to Puerto Galera and coming back with some amazingly good shots. It's just kind of a dilemma that people have to kind of decide for themselves. What am I gonna do? Am I just going to remain a GoPro iPhone guy, or am I going to actually really get into this, because it can get expensive? And so you have to just kind of decide for yourself, be honest with yourself, what you're going to do.
Thank you so much, team, and thank you so much for that advice and for giving us this opportunity to do the interview with you. So, for the last time, I would like you to invite all our viewers also and listeners to your book where we can purchase them or where we can buy them. This diving and snorkeling guide to Puerto Galera.
Yeah, well, it's available as a Kindle book on Amazon, as a PDF on blurb.com, BLURB, and also on Blurb and Amazon, you can get the softcover copy. And then I think in Puerto Galera right now, I believe Scandi
Yeah.
is carrying some of the books, or will soon be carrying some of the books. And so you can actually get some by taking a walk over to Big La Laguna and talking to Marianne or somebody like that. But yeah, we really appreciate anyone who would like to purchase the book, and we hope they enjoy it. We've tried to make it, colorful and kind of handy descriptions. Kind of whet your appetite of what you're going to see in each of the dive sites, because as we all know, usually the dive sites are a surprise every time. That's the beauty of diving underwater, is everything changes. And so we think that you'd be able to uh, get a good idea of what you can see with the dive site descriptions, and then you'll probably see a lot more. So hopefully you'll enjoy the colorful pictures, and we'll set you on the right track for a fun week or two in Puerto Galera.
And if you want to promote, if you want to follow your activities and your dive treats, where are we going to see your whereabouts and then your schedules?
Oh, well, um, uh, on my website, which is doubleblue.com, we usually post trips that we take or that we have. Just look up at the top of the website, and you'll see things that say, Puerto Galera dive trip, or trip to Socorro Islands, trip to Raja Ampat. We usually have every year, Simon and his wife Sophie and I have trips, and Simon's kind of the diving guy to talk to if you have any diving questions. Of course, he's got his book Scuba Confidential out, which is a huge hit, and similar books in that series. And so Simon's that guy, and I tried to be my background is actually in television news. And so I try to be the guy that can help you out either with your video or your still photography. And so Sophie has been all around Indonesia and Philippine area, and she is just amazing with critter IDs and stuff like that, and even finding that kind of stuff. So we kind of think as a threesome, we're a pretty good, laid back but knowledgeable bunch to go on a trip with. So if you'd like to, follow us or join one of our trips, you can go to our website and see that. And otherwise, pretty much I just publish Tim Rock at Facebook, or we have Ocean Dream Specific over on Instagram, and people can just follow that.
Thank you so
With
much,
it,
Steve.
yeah, I was just going to say, with the Ocean Dreams, we do
Oh,
our own apparel too. So
yeah.
yeah, so
Oh
you
my,
can
yeah, we'll check
follow
it out.
some of that if you like to see, get some rash guards or leggings or something like that. We got them.
Okay, thank you so much. We have really learned a lot from the books, diving tips, photography tips, and also some of the vibrant and marine life in Puerto Galera. And all your experiences is so really nice. And I hope someday, like for myself, I could really improve well in scuba diving and I can go more in my career in scuba diving.
Hmm.
So I'm really thank you so much for this opportunity, and I hope all the viewers of Bookart Philippines will also try scuba diving, or if they can't really do scuba diving, maybe they can just at least try snorkeling.
Yeah, well, I think it's wonderful you folks have a program like this that really
Mhm.
promotes
Yeah.
all aspects of the ocean
Mhm.
and ocean education. It's super important, and people don't realize sometimes how really fragile the ocean is. So the more people are talking about it and more awareness, programs like you folks have, it's just really special, and really glad to join you for this segment.
Yeah.
Okay, I would like to thank our teenage viewers who are more into also who will watch this, who are more into video-based learning. Hope they will pick up the book and see the visual world. This today we've covered both as all three of us as divers, and Tim being a long time photojournalist, his background in TV. Hope everybody's learned something
Yeah.
today.
Oh, I
Uh,
forgot. I do have a YouTube channel too. It's just
Oh,
Tim
oh,
Rock.
okay. You can, okay, just Tim Rock. So go
Yeah.
ahead, go watch some stunning uh, photography. Tim does wide angle. So I would also like to mention some of the viewers from Bookart. They're not really into this, so they must be thinking, what is macro? So macro is the small stuff. Wide
Mhm.
angle is the big stuff. So anybody who was like that's means you are thinking about taking the plunge or becoming a diver. It's a wonderful, wonderful world out there, and I'm sure, like looking at Tim's means hearing us out, you would be really wanting to explore beyond the waves, what lies beneath. So that's where the question starts. And thank you very much, Tim, Kathleen, for organizing all this. And I would also like to thank our technical diver, Simon, for connecting me to you.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
Although he couldn't be here, but anybody who has interest in tech diving, who's more into geeky stuff, that's the thing to go. And then go hit subscribe, like, and with Simon also. So thanks everyone today for sharing your knowledge. I really enjoyed this.
Yeah. Thank
Well,
you,
thank
team.
you very much, and I enjoyed meeting you guys too. And it's a pleasure. Keep the show going. I'm really happy to see it. So,
Yeah. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I'll see you in
okay.
Puerto Galera.
Yeah, I hope to get there pretty soon. Again.
Yeah. Hope we can dive
Yeah.
together.
That
Thank
sounds
you,
great.
Tim. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
guys.
much. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye. All right. Thanks so much, Kath.